So hello everyone, welcome to this another video of this channel. I'm Abhishek Verma and you are watching Spring Basics with Spring Boot series. In today's video, we are going to see what happens when we have multiple beans of same data type. What is the kind of error which we will be facing and how to resolve that error with the help of @qualifier and @primary annotation. All these things we are going to do with the help of code only. But before this, we will try to see the definition with the help of a deck of only one slide. Believe me, you won't be able to understand it just with the help of slide, because even the experienced developers face it difficult in order to understand the difference between these two. They feel they are same annotations, but obviously that is not a case. So that's why we need to jump in towards the code and try to understand it, what's the main difference between these two. Also in between, I will share the link of my few shorts with you, which you can use directly to answer the interview questions related to @qualifier and @primary. Now let's directly start with the deck. So first of all, let's try to understand what's the basic difference between @primary and @qualifier just with the help of their definitions. So @primary says that it specifies the bean that should be given preference when multiple candidates are qualified to auto-wire a dependency. For example, let's say that we have a service class. Now service is dependent on repository. Now there are multiple types of repository. Let's say there is MySQL repository, there is Mongo repository, there is H2 repository and some other repository also. So out of these 4 repositories, which one should be selected by default? So that can be chosen with the help of @primary here. That's the simple meaning of it. The second one is @qualifier. And this says specifies which exact bean should be auto-wired when multiple candidates are available. Now you will say, Abhishek, these are just, you have just rearranged some words, but both our lines are similar only. But the thing is that is not a case, okay? So there is a very slight difference. Primary, as I mentioned you, that it is used when you have multiple candidates. So let's say for service, there is a MySQL repository, there is something like a PostgreSQL repository, H2 repository, Mongo repository, and multiple classes as such. Now you say that by default, out of all these repositories, I will be always using the MySQL repository. And that's a by default one. So you will give it as @primary. That is the annotation which you will be using. Now out of these, so let's say that I'm creating some other service IMPL also. So I made a very special service IMPL which is something related with NoSQL. Now in this case, although MySQL repository is primary, but I want to inject something, let's say DynamoDB or something like Mongo repository. So those I want to inject instead of primary one, MySQL. So I want to override the primary and I want to inject a special one in this particular scenario. So that's why it says the exact bean which needs to be auto-wired. So that we mention with the help of qualifier. So the difference is, first of all, let's try to understand the similarity. So both of them help you in order to identify the bean when we have multiple candidates. The difference is primary always provide you the preference, that which one should be your primary preference here. So that is about @primary. And @qualifier will tell you exactly which beans needs to be auto-wired in this case. You will say, Abhishek, this is still confusing. So the reality is, yes, it is confusing. And because of this reason only, I made some short videos also on this, which are less than 1 minute. Because this is very important and many times ask you in the interview questions also. So that also I have done. So let me just quickly show you those video links which are available, and then we will directly jump into code. And then believe me, at the end of the video, you will say that Abhishek, you made the things easier to understand for us. If that is not a case, you can stop watching these videos. Believe me, that's the guarantee which I can take. So first of all, let me show you which short videos I'm talking about here. So here, as you can see, this is my GitHub repository where I keep uploading all the questions which I have answered till now in my short videos or Instagram reels. So you can see this is a very big list. till now 137 questions have been answered. And here, if you see questions number 118, so this starts with auto wiring. Then I have explained what is @qualifier, what happens when qualifier is not available, what is primary, what happens when primary is not available, and what's the difference between qualifier and primary. So you can say that if we will choose these 5 videos, it will hardly take you 5 minutes to watch these. And this is very important when you just need to answer in an interview, because at that time you can't explain in a very big example. You need to be as quick as possible. So for quick answers, you can check out those videos. For the detailed knowledge, you need to check the hands-on, which we will be doing now. So let's go to our IDE. So here this is our IDE. As always, I have copied from the previous demo, and let's go to this demo 6. So if I just quickly show you, this is my owner repository, this is my owner service, this is my owner repository IMPL, just one class is there, and this is my owner service IMPL. Now within the service, I have auto wired the owner repository, and for owner ID, I'm saying by default it is going to be 10 here. Then this is my config class, and here, as you know, that we are just having these two annotations, nothing else. And this is going to be my main class here, where I'm saying owner service IMPL, because that is the name of my class here. That is owner service IMPL, OI made as small. Details you can check out in the previous videos also. Yeah. Now let's try to execute this. So if I execute it, so let me just quickly go there, and here let's see. So you see this is working fine. Okay. First of all, owner repository IMPL bean got created. Reason that it tried to check as per the packages. So in the packages, you see R comes before S. So that is why owner repository IMPL got created first. Then service IMPL got created, and then it printed the statement found owner with owner ID 10, which was available in the owner repository IMPL. So that is how the things are going to work here. Yeah. Now before proceeding with qualifier and primary, let me just show you one interesting thing. Let's try to understand why do we need these, why do we basically need this class? What do you say? Initially, I made this class so that I can call it as a configuration class. Now do you feel there is any kind of configuration here? You will say no, Abhishek, there is no configuration. Now the only reason left is because I want to write somewhere @component scan. So if that is the case, why not to copy both of these annotations, or let's say Control X from here, and directly write them on my demo class itself here. Simple. Let's call this itself as the configuration class, and let's mention @component scan here itself. Now another interesting thing to see. Yeah. Or first of all, so now basically we don't need this spring config. Okay. So let's remove this config. So yeah. So here you see the config has been removed. Now let's do something more interesting. So this is the one. Yeah. So here you see that now it is saying that okay, this spring config and this is required. So what we will do is here I'll call it as demo only. So now this is itself my config class. I don't need any extra config class, okay, because I don't need to give anything special there. So let me make this itself as the config class. Now let's see whether it is going to work or not. So let's execute, and you see things are still working. So that means we got rid of the configuration class. Generally we make a configuration class when we need to define the beans and something, but since it is an empty, so it doesn't matter whether you make a separate class as a configuration class or this itself. Another interesting feature, remember what I told you about component scan. By default it will scan the package which the class is available. So demo class is available in this package. So by default it will scan this package and its child package. So do you think we need to mention this particular thing? Because by default and this name mentioned here are same. Earlier why did we require it? Because it was a part of the config package. Now we are already in that package, so I don't need this. Okay. So let me write it like this. Now let's try to execute it again. So again if we do, so you see things are still working here. Okay, so everything is still working fine here. So that is the trick how to make your code even much more shorter. And now remember the day when I told you that in future we are going to make, or we are going to remove the spring config completely.
today is that day. And believe me, today I make one more commitment here, that a day will come where you won't even see this much amount of code here for your main class. Okay, I mean, things are even going to become easier than this. And what I feel is that this day will come in the next video, believe me. Okay, so step by step we are progressing, we are reaching towards our goal. Now if you are clear till this point, pause the video, like it, and tell me something in the comments. Did you like it or not? Okay, now let's proceed with the next thing. So things are still working for us now. Now what I feel is that in order to explain you that particular demo, we need to have multiple classes, so that first of all we can have multiple contenders. Yeah, so what we will do is, for this owner service IMPL, I'll just make a very small change here, and I will call it as common. Okay, so let me call it as owner service IMPL common being created. And now let's give it a different name also. Yeah, so here I'll call it as common service. So this is the name I will be using here, common service. Now if that is the thing, so in order to execute this code, what I need to do is I need to go here and I need to say here common service. Yeah, so this is the one. Same way in this owner repository IMPL also, let me call here as common. Yeah, this I'm just updating because later on I'll make one more class. Okay, so only for that particular purpose. And let me change here also, let me change the name of this particular class, and let's start calling it as common repository. Okay, so in the bigger code, I mean, there are many more ways. Generally people tell me that, okay Abhishek, we want to understand this concept, that concept, how can we make a very lengthy code? Believe me, you never need a very lengthy code, you just need to understand the concept first. Okay, understand this, try to implement it in some different way, that will work. Okay, now let's execute it again. Yeah, so now if you are executing it again, believe me, again this is working fine. Okay, owner repository MPL bean common bean created, and then service common bean created. Yeah, so everything was fine here. And for this, as of now, we just made a change here for the name change, because there we need to give the name. In case of service, here we don't need to worry, because auto wiring helps because of this type here. So for this type there is only one, so hence auto wiring is working fine here. Now let's try to do something more interesting. Now what I'll do is that for this service, currently there is only one service. Let me try to make another service here. Okay, so I'll just copy it and paste it here. This is owner service MPL2. Now let me call it as MySQL service. Okay, or let's call it as special service. Yeah, so this is my special service here. I don't know what are the exact reasons of calling it as special, but maybe we are making it only for this demo, hence we are calling it as special service, and hence special bean got created here. Yeah, and since it is special, let's provide it here as 20, just to mention it is special here. Okay, so this is the case, and the name is owner service IMPL2. That is fine. Now from this demo class, do you think there will be any issue in executing? Let's try to understand how many beans will be created and what all things will happen. So let's go here, let's execute. So now when you are executing the code, you see for repository only one bean got created, which is common. For service, two beans got created, one from the common, second one because of the special. Why this is the sequence? Because you see they are in the same package, so now only the class name differs. So first one is owner service IMPL, another one is owner service IMPL2. So because of that sequence this happens. Yep, but both the beans are getting created, and we are getting this 10. So this 10 means it is obviously working with the owner service IMPL, because there only we gave 10. In owner service IMPL I am using 20 here. So if I want to go with the second one, what I need to do in this particular case is I need to copy this name and provide it here. So this is the one. So now I have provided, and let me execute it again. So if I execute, so you see again for repository only one bean, for service two beans got created, because that is eager initialization. Yeah, and when you are executing this, now it is saying 20. Why? Because this time out of those two service IMPL, it selected owner service IMPL2, then 20 was passed in this particular one, and then it later on went to your this particular repository IMPL. So it is saying 20. I hope it is clear till now. Yeah. So for service, it was easy. You said that, okay, Abhishek, since you are specifying the name here, so that way it is working fine. Okay, that's good. Yeah. Now let's try to do the same thing with the repository also. Because if it is a common, or let's say if it is a special service, I don't want to use a common repository here. I want to use a special repository here. So what I'll do is, for repository also, I'll make a copy. Yeah. So there we go, and let's start calling this as special. Okay, so I'm printing a special here, and same way I'm writing special here. So this is the one. Yeah, and just in order to identify, because this line will remain same only, so let's make it even more unique. So we will say from special repository. So this way, let's rename it as from special repository. So we are changing the message. So let me copy this and let me go to this particular one, and let me see here from common repository. So this one I have mentioned. So from common repository, from special repository, name of the repositories I have also mentioned here very clearly. Yeah, fine. That's good. Now let's execute the code again. Okay, or this time, first of all, let's execute the code with the help of common service. So with the help of common service, let's execute. So here you see that I'm very clearly mentioning which one I want to use, common or special. That's why it is easier for me. It is not getting confused. But now when I will try to execute this, let's see what happens. So now when you are executing this, what happens is, first of all, it is able to create both the repository IMPL. That was clear, common and then special. Yeah, reason is because of that again 1 and 2. Then it started creating the bean of the owner service IMPL here, the common one. So this line got printed. Now when this line was printed, then it tried to auto wire the owner repository. So this happens, the auto wiring happens at that time itself when the bean is created. Obviously, since this line was just printed, hence it got printed first. Then it tried to auto wire this. Now when it tried to auto wire this, what happened is, it gave me an error. Why? Because there were two classes or two beans which were of type owner repository. And I guess same is the error which it mentioned here also. So it says unsatisfied dependency exception here, and let's try to understand. Error creating bean with the name common service. And what was the error? Unsatisfied dependency expressed through field owner repository. So there is some issue with this owner repository. What is the issue? No qualifying bean of type this particular one owner repository available. So it says there is no bean of this type, but you will say no, on the top two beans are getting created. The reason is that we were expecting only one bean here of this type, but in reality it found two beans, common repository, special repository. How this name is getting printed? Because here you have given these names, common repository and special repository. So it found two names, and now it is confused which one shall I inject. So that's the basic error. And here also, if you see, the main exception is no unique bean definition exception, because this time Spring is not able to understand that here which one shall I add. Shall I inject common or shall I inject special? Yeah, obviously which one is there, it is not getting confused. And you know the rule is simple. Whenever Java gets confused, it gives you the error. Now if that is the case, now you tell me what we should do here. There should be some mechanism that I can tell that whenever there are multiple beans of same type, out of them consider common as the primary one, because this is common obviously. So for all the general scenarios, consider this as your preferred repository. So what I will do is, I will say here @ on the class level primary. Yeah, so I'll call it as primary here, Control Shift O. Now when you go here, you will see that this is the annotation, and it's a very simple annotation. Okay, so there is nothing much in this one. Yeah. So this is @primary here, and this is applied always on the class level. So this is primary. Now let's try to execute it again. So this time when I execute it again, so you will see what it did. It created beans for both of the repositories, then created beans for both the service, and then it says found owner with owner ID 10 from the common repository. So this time when I executed, Still it was able to find two repositories. But then it knew that out of always these two repositories, for the owner repository, I always need to prefer common repository. So that is the reason, guys. I hope it is clear that this is going to be your preferred approach here. It will never pick owner repository MPL2, although it exists. Always this will be used or this will be picked. Yeah. Now you will say, Abhishek, this is wrong. I mean, believe me, there is nothing wrong here. Try to imagine you go to a market. Now, when you go to your market, then you are having multiple options to do the payment. You have cash also, you have credit card also, you have debit card also, and beside this, you nowadays have the UPI also, the Google Pay or Paytm or all these things also. Out of all these things, does it happens that you go to market and then you are confused? How should I pay? I have 5 options. It never happens because you have trained your mind that whenever there are multiple options with me, at that time, go for this Paytm or go for this cash or something like this. Always you try to train yourself. Same we are training here that whenever there are multiple repository beans, try to go for this common repository. Yeah, this. Now you may say that, okay, Abhishek, what if on both of them we say primary? Now what will happen? Okay. So again, what do you think in reality what will happen to you? I just now told you you need to train your mind. Now you were having 5 options: cash, credit card, debit card, Paytm, Google Pay, and then let's say some other option also. And then you chose that, okay, out of them I will be using Paytm. But now you said I will be using Paytm also, I will be using Google Pay also. Obviously, some confusion will be there, some error will be there. Let's try to see what is the error or what happens. So again, in this kind of scenario, same thing will happen. Okay, just the message will change a bit. It will say more than one primary being found among the candidates. So again, 2 candidates and both you are saying primary. So there is no fun of calling it as primary. Yeah. So that's the point here, guys. So don't try to play with Spring like this. Okay. Like if you want to learn, then you can play, but in the real project, never play like this. Primary can be only one. I mean, primary means primary, guys. Like it can't be 2. Okay. It is like having 2 sims in the primary slot. Okay. In primary slot, you can have only 1 sim only. Second one will go to the secondary slot. Yeah. Now this is fine. So let's just execute it once again. And you say this is working. Good. Now let's go here back again. And this time what I'll do is I'll go for the special service. Yeah. So let's say special service. Now tell me what will happen. For special service, will it say common repository or special repository? Which one will be used? As of now, I haven't made any change in the code. You can clearly see. This is my owner repository IMPL. This is my owner repository IMPL2. Tell me what will be printed, common repository or special repository. If you will interact with me, then only we can understand it better. You can't say that, okay, Abhishek, you only need to do the hard work. Only you need to explain each and everything. You also need to comment, guys. Okay. That's the way we can make it live. Otherwise in live also what will happen? It's not that only I should be speaking. You can also comment and that way we can still make it interactive. Believe me, I will reply you there in the comments. Okay. So let's see. So now we see that again, both the repository beans got created, both the service bean got created, and it is saying common repository. Why? Because the reason is same. Out of those two, you said that your common is going to be primary, and that's the simple reason. Okay, fine. That reason is clear. But the point is, if my service is special, then that means that this time I want to go for the special repository. Now that's the trick. Okay. So this is the point. Now you will say, okay, Abhishek, that is simple. Remove @primary from common and put it over your special repository. But then see what will happen. Every time special will become your default, which you don't want to make. So try to understand in the real life example also. You were having multiple options to do the payment. You were having credit card, debit card, cash was there, Google Pay was there, Paytm was there. All these options were there. And you chose that always I will go for the Google Pay. But what happened that sometime you go to a particular place, and that particular place, let's say you want to buy a car or you want to buy something very big. Now since you want to buy something very big, So you say that out of these, I should be this time using credit card in order to do this purchase, so that later on I can get a huge cashback because of the credit card. Okay. So for some special scenarios only, you want credit card to be chosen over your Paytm or Google Pay. So same here, for the special service, I want to choose special repository only, not the common one. And common repository for all other scenarios, special repository for this special case. Yeah. So that means here I need to give the information that this is a special scenario and choose special repository over the common. So how to do it? For this, the rule is simple. You say here @qualifier. Yeah. And same example I have given in my shorts also. So now if you feel it is little tricky to jump from here to that particular example of payment, so you can watch my shorts. Same example I have explained there also. Okay. So you say here @qualifier. And now what we will do is we will copy this name special repository. So this special repository I will type in here. Now what will happen? Now if I execute, so let's try to understand. So in the demo, it was special service. Then it went to your special service only, and there it will took your special repository. So you see it is printing from the special repository, guys. Yeah. So this is the way. So this time, although my primary is common, but I said that this is a special scenario. This time I'm doing a very big purchase. So I can't do it with the help of Google Pay. I want to use my credit card. So that is @qualifier. So @primary is generally used to tag which bean to give preference when there are multiple candidates. And @qualifier is used to explicitly inject a particular bean out of multiple candidates. Yeah. So that way you can try to make usage of them. Let's execute it again here. So yeah, this was how it was working. Yeah. And now if I go to common, so let me go for common here. Will it change the name? Let's see what it will do now. So if I will go for common here, so you see when I go for common, by default it is using common repository, because in this owner service IMPL you didn't mention any @qualifier. So by default primary will be used. Now there is one more small interesting question. What if that here in the owner service IMPL I give a spelling mistake? So the name was repository, I just wrote it like this, repositor. Now what will happen? Will it switch back to the primary or will it give me complete error? Try to understand. Here in qualifier you are saying special repository, your primary is common, so which one will be chosen now? Obviously special repository won't come here because you have given a wrong name. So will it go back to the primary? Let's try to understand. And for this I need to write here special again. So let me see here special something like this, guys, and now let's execute. So on executing this, you see this time it gave you error. Why error? Although both the beans got created for common as well as special repository, but this time it gave you the error because you told explicitly that I am doing a very big purchase. For this very big purchase I need credit card only. So there is no option to go or fall back to something like your Paytm or Google Pay. It's at that particular point of time, if your credit card is not working, you can't purchase your car. Okay. So it was very clear that this time I need to go for this special repository only. If there is any mistake, if the name is wrong, this is not available, so it will give me the error here. Okay. So that is the goal, guys, and the exception is no such bean definition exception. Yeah. So this was the one, and now I hope that you should be clear with the common or sorry, not common, but with the @primary and @qualifier. Yeah. And if the things are clear, then you know what you need to do. You just need to like the video, you need to share it with your friends, you need to comment something so that I know that you have understood the point. YouTube also knows you have understood the point, and someone else who is just thinking whether to watch video or not, they will also get some motivation that this is a good video and they should watch it. Okay. And in the next video, I guess we will be completely moving on towards the Spring Boot. So thanks everyone.